Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I will be looking at the Six Voyages of Lone Sloan by Philippe Druillet, I believe is how Druillet. Sorry, I'm going to fuck up the French names every time. Druillet. This is something I've been wanting to check out for a while. I remember seeing Druillet's art in the old heavy metals. I'm definitely aware of it. I know what it is. I always had a hard time understanding what the hell he was writing about in my memory of him. It's been a long, long time. So I've avoided getting any of these collections from Titan, but we stumbled across this one in a visit to Second and Charles, and so I picked it up quite cheap and I'm very happy to have it because the artwork is stunning. And then now, I don't know, like the stories make more sense to me than the first time I read them. They're kind of just like, I don't know, these Lovecraftian myths of this guy. Like in this one, you have this Sloan character basically gets on this like cosmic chair and it takes him around to these different adventures. So cool, like fantasy stuff like that. Really, it's just a canvas for Druillet to go wild in terms of imagination. Some cool stuff happening here right out the gate. Like the artist wants a big, long, stretched out landscape panel and just shoves it in sideways. Is like makes you turn for one panel. I like those kind of things. That's someone who's just playing and trying stuff out. Obviously, though, like the real headliner here is the artwork, not so much the stories, because you get these just absolutely insane psychedelic images. There's a lot of like really precise symmetry in here, but it all looks hand done. Insane amount of detailing and patterning, so it almost has this like, how in the hell do you even do this by hand to have all of this precise symmetry with so many little patterns and stuff. Just really impressive, imaginative images. Cool ass machines that kind of look symmetrical, but then they have like little variations in them as they come across. They're not the exact same thing side to side always. Just really, really cool stuff in here. The one problem I do have is that he sucks quite a bit at drawing faces. Like this face here just looks like some really bad tracing of a really bad Barry Windsor Smith face or something. The people aren't handled so well always, but I feel like that's something that gets better over the course of the book as well. Really cool compositions with really cool like macro shapes suggested and embedded underneath, like the way this all creates this like wrapped up shape here, almost like a Moebius strip or something. It's very cool the way that cuts off the bottom panel here. And then I also really like this composition, but even more so was impressed with Druillet's visualization abilities. I very much doubt this was something he went and built a model for just 2 pages. So his ability to visualize this thing that obviously doesn't exist and see it from such different perspectives and with so much detail in it is very cool to me. And again, getting the accurate like details on all of these intricate patterns going on. It's obvious that this guy just loved to draw. Really like this panel. He's getting a lot better with his faces and his figures. There's a nice naturalism to this pose. This very much looks like hanging out with Moebius has been an influence with the feet right on the ground like that. This feels like a Moebius pose. It almost looks like maybe Moebius drew it because it's so anatomically solid compared to a lot of Druillet's other work, and has that, I don't know, the legs and the weight of that feel like a Moebius blueberry drawing. But I don't know, maybe that influence is just from being around each other. The colors on it, I love this whole thing. It's just so cool to look at. While I was reading this book, like many of the books I'm reading on the couch, and Tori is at her desk, which is right behind me, so she's kind of looking over my shoulder. And throughout this whole book, she was like, ooh, that's cool. Oh, that's pretty. So I showed her this one, and she was like, oh my god, it's like a big stormtrooper Cthulhu. It cracked me up. I thought that was absolutely perfect way to put that. Time-wise, this definitely would have come out after Star Wars, I think, so that makes, well, maybe not. when did this come out? So this came out in 1972, so I guess that would have been before Star Wars. So that's interesting because you kind of have the H.R. Giger thing, and then you have the Star Wars thing. So maybe he was through Moebius was connected to all those guys as they were working on Jodorowsky's Dune, or was he part of that team? I don't know. It's just there's a lot of things going on design wise in here that seems like they've maybe been aped. Besides the stunning just design work going on in here, the sense of scale that Druillet gets in his artwork is pretty crazy. It's to the point, like in this image, where he's getting so big. You know, these are planets, that my brain's almost not able to perceive these things at the cosmic scale I'm supposed to perceive them at. Incredible drawing and incredible imagination, and the ideas. I don't know how this works with a bunch of stiff bridges between planets circling in space, but the visual is cool. But I was thinking while I was reading it is compare this to like a Juan Jimenez or Jimenez art, and the way he introduces scale in his works. Like in this, you just jump, boom, like first you're thrown right into it. And so that you have some context of like the orbs, but you haven't really been on those orbs. You haven't experienced them. There's a spaceship here that's kind of in between these two planets. There's no overlap, so you don't really get a sense of how big that ship is. Whereas like Juan Jimenez, yeah, and then on the next page, you kind of get a sense, you know, there's a planet again, but there's no real context for how big the planet is. I feel like what Jimenez does that makes his work feel so massive, even though I think this is probably bigger in terms of the space it's representing, is he'll lead you into it. So, or out of it. Like he'll show you something like this and then zoom in, or he'll zoom out to something like this so that you feel like an emotional connection to the sense of scale, or like some kind of physical connection yourself. And I think Druillet is missing that kind of storytelling skill in part. But the images themselves are, I mean, you just can't argue with that. Some really cool stuff in this story with op art, something that I'm thinking about for Hologen. I think we're going to use some op art effects, so seeing this is really cool. I would also be interested to know if this was before or after Steranko's stuff. I really need to get Steranko's shield because I know he had a lot of really fun design ideas in that. It's just those kind of older books are harder for me to read, but I do need to get that. So if anyone can give me context on who is influencing who there, that would be awesome. I also really like in some of the lettering, there's like an alien language that's being used. So just really like fleshing out sci-fi. Really like the design of this mask here. Like rich worlds. This is someone who is, you know, a master of imagination. This is another one of those just astonishing scales where you have these things that are so big they're propping up and like holding the earth to spin on it, almost like this metaphysical astrology or something. Really beautiful. Obviously, again, like a lot of Lovecraftian influences going on, but facing the same problem of scale where it's just like you're just dumped into it, and then you don't really get any cues to show you what the relations of scale are between the images. And then in the back of the book, you get some cool little extras, including just like previous covers, a letter from Hergé to Philippe Druillet, which is very cool. You can't read it because it's in French, but it's a cool little thing, and you could read it online if you want. And then the coolest thing, and I think some things that I would love to own or love to see more things like this, are some cast bronzes designed by Philippe Druillet, and these are fantastic. There's a Polish sculpture, I think. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. There was a documentary on him. He wound up like poor and like a janitor in LA or something, but was doing these monumental sculptures leading up to World War II. Kind of reminds me of his work. I wish I could remember that guy's name. Yeah, I'm in the blank on it, but it kind of reminds me of that. So, like, check that out too. Like, look up see if anyone can put in the comments what that guy's name was, and other people go look it out. But these are really really cool. So, quite enjoyed this book, and this gives me much more incentive to put the rest of this collection and the rest of the Druillet library higher up in my queue of things that I want